Hi everyone, I'm Siddharth from Sampurna Ahara. I'm an educator, entrepreneur, ecologist and father who's very passionate about healthy food and a healthy environment. I'm really thrilled today to be joined by Dr. Sailesh Rao, the founder of Climate Healers and a passionate grandfather. Dr. Rao, you're in Bangalore as part of attending a conference on ecosystem restoration, and as an ecologist that sort of really caught my attention. For the benefit of everyone watching this video, I'd like to hear a little bit more about you, your journey, what brought you to want to become a climate healer and what that means for you.
Great question, because I started in 2005 when I saw Al Gore's presentation on TV and I was so shocked. I told my wife, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time trying to make the internet 10 times faster. And she said, if you think it's that important, why don't you look into it? So I started looking into it and I realized it's actually far worse than what he was saying. Because he was focusing on just the energy infrastructure, whereas the entire way of life is being questioned, And so I started studying it from a systems angle, because that's what I do. I'm a systems engineer by profession. And I realized that the way we were framing climate change in the mainstream was something that I would be totally opposed to if they did it to me. Okay, so it's like the earth has a fever. At that point she had a 1 degree Celsius fever, a 0.8 degree Celsius at that time. And if you have a 0.8 degree Celsius fever and you go to a doctor, the doctor examines you and he says, I will make sure that the fever doesn't go over 2 degrees Celsius. Wouldn't you think that this doctor is incompetent? Right? See, the assumption was that climate heating is going to happen. And we are just going to have to limit it to a certain point and then hopefully keep it underneath that. That was the discussion that was going on. And I said, who's talking about reducing that fever? And why isn't anyone working on reducing that fever? Is that impossible? Then I started looking into it. This is when I started Climate Healers in 2007. And the objective was to reverse climate change. How would you reverse climate change? How would you solve climate change? And very soon, you realize your entire way of life has to be changed, has to be transformed. And so that's the beginning of Climate Healers.
Oh, wow. So when you said you were exploring the different ways to do healing, what are all the different ways that you tried or that you explored, and what were the things that worked in your situation and what were the things that didn't?
Yeah, very soon when you start studying this, you realize that consumerism is not the right foundation for a sustainable civilization.
Okay,
it's quite obvious, especially when you assume an infinite consumption model. Which is what MIT World 3 model was assuming. Even the later Stockholm Resilience Institute's Earth 3 systems model also assumes an infinite consumption model. So, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that if you assume every individual wants to consume an infinite amount of stuff, we are all going to die.
Right.
So the only thing the models are examining is, when are we going to die?
And how can you slow down that dying process?
Well, yeah. But the assumption was that somehow we are going to get to an infinite consumption model for everybody.
Oh, wow.
That's how unrealistic the models are,
Wow.
And we know that these are axioms in our civilization because we see 3,000 advertisements every day and we think it's normal. Or we see animals on leashes, animals in cages, and we think it's normal.
We see people on the street with no food and we think that it's normal.
Yeah, that's the third one. Third one I realized was world hunger is systemic. It's the foundation of the system, because without world hunger, a lot of people, no one will be doing some of these jobs that are awful. Right? So how do you persuade someone to go work in a slaughterhouse? You have to make sure that there are hungry people who will do that. So we need to take that next step so that we reach a steady state. And that ethics is about beginning to treat all life as sacred. Because if you don't treat all life as sacred, you're going to destroy the life that you don't think is sacred.
Right.
And get away from the idea that you need to consume an infinite amount of stuff to be happy. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
every epic is teaching us.
Right.
Not just Indian epics, but Homer's Iliad. That's what it's all about, right? So even Western epics are teaching us the same thing. So we are sort of going contrary to our epics,
Right.
and we are expecting it to somehow be sustainable.
And what you just said about epics. What I heard you say is that every story that we have as cultures, our stories are all telling us that happiness is not in consumerism.
Exactly.
Yet the life we are living, the systems that we choose to participate in and feel validated by is doing exactly the opposite
Right.
from all the stories you've probably told your grandchildren.
Right. I mean, I'm saying, why are we shocked that it's not sustainable? Because our ancestors have been telling us, and we are trying to make a sustainable civilization while still maintaining the fundamental axioms. So clearly, it's not going to work, right? But if you look at any program in sustainability in any college, any university, they never question the foundations of consumerism and supremacism and world hunger.
So I studied in the US for 5 years for my PhD. I recall two things that were extremely jarring about flying in an airplane over the US Midwest. I was in Minnesota, a place that's famed for agriculture, I think famed for dairy also.
Right.
And the other thing was just the scale of farm and or what was called as farms over there. Just totally didn't match what I mean, as a city person, had experienced of farms in India. Everything that's feeding people is grown from smallholder farmers. That's all over the place.
Right.
And so we're tied into that is a deeply destructive and deeply non-functional agricultural system.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tremendously wasteful agricultural system because all that food is, as you said, is almost inedible for human beings, but it is fed to animals and then we eat the animals, right? And so how is that edible now? Once it's gone and processed inside an animal, it becomes edible. No, this is the source of all diseases. So, say we have created this system where most of the food we grow is being fed to our animals. Our animals actually eat 5 times as much food as we eat, human beings eat. Okay?
Yeah.
And they're only providing us with 12% of the food we eat. So there's a tremendous reduction that happens going through an animal. The average, according to the IPCC, is 39 to 1. 39 kgs of food is fed to an animal to get 1 kg of food out of the animal. And this is dry weight to dry weight comparisons, so you take the water out and you compare.
Yeah.
And so that's the source of inefficiency in the food system.
That's 6 times the amount of land that's going into the 85% of our diet that is plant-based.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and so that is the largest chunk of land we use for growing animal foods, land animal foods, right?
Right.
And then to get the remaining 3% of the food we eat, we are literally bottom trawling the entire ocean. Okay? I mean, we bottom trawl 4 billion acres of the ocean floor every year. In comparison, we destroy 30 million acres of tropical forests every year. And the only reason we are able to do this is because it's heavily subsidized by governments around the world.
Yeah.
So it's uniformly subsidized by governments around the world. Whether it's, no matter which government you talk to, they're subsidizing animal foods. They're not subsidizing plant foods.
Right.
Right. So every government is engaged in trying to persuade the people to consume more and more animal foods. Okay?
And there's also an issue of it being aspirational.
Right. That's also a story we tell.
Yes.
To make it aspirational.
Yes.
For people, right? So we sort of spin the story that you really need to be eating this, even though if you look at it, it is a week-old carcass of an animal. I mean, how can it be appetizing if you really look at it, right? So the only way they make it appetizing is by first painting it and then refrigerating it and packaging it and then telling stories around it. It's necessary, it's essential and all that, right? So Dr. John McDougall has these 4 deadly dietary deceptions that we tell people. We start with children as well. First is the protein deception, which is to convince people that protein is only found in animal foods,
Right.
which is absolutely not true, right? The calcium deception, that the calcium is only found in milk,
Yeah.
which again
This is also not true.
Absolutely not true. Third is the omega-3 deception, that omega-3 fatty acids are only found in fish,
Fish.
which
Yeah.
is again not true. And the fourth is the carb deception, which is to convince people if you eat carbs, you're going to get fat, which is the exact opposite of what really happens.
Yeah.
So, our marketing system is basically convince people that up is down, right, and left is right, and make people eat food that makes them sick, and they get chronic diseases, and then we feed them pharmaceuticals. So pharmaceuticals are basically about making sure that people don't get off the medicine, and also they don't die. So don't kill the patient, but don't kill the disease.
What are the top 3 most powerful levers, according to you, that those of us who are seriously concerned about climate change should be looking at?
Number 1 is the food system.
Okay.
That is the biggest lever we have. And isn't it amazing that in nature, you take care of your health, you take care of the planet as well. So you start eating healthy, whole food, plant-based meals, the planet will also start healing. 98% of the CO2 on land is in the timberland, in forests, and in urban areas, and in croplands.
Right.
Only 2% is in the deserts and the grazing lands,
Right.
for animals. Okay, so in that land, which only has 2% of the CO2, if you could bring back the original ecosystem that used to be there, you can literally reverse climate change.
As you said, working for a healthy planet works for myself to be healthy and vice versa.
Right.
We really make the biggest change towards transforming the system.
Absolutely. See, I see the planet as a reflection of the individual. Okay, so this is a reflection of the average individual.
Right.
Not one individual, but an average individual. And so when we heal ourselves, we heal the planet. And so, and I call this the oxygen mask rule. You have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can heal before you can help others, right?
Right.
So it's the same way here. We have to heal ourselves as a species, and we will see the planet is healing around us.
I wanted to take a minute to just discuss your latest book that you wrote while on a journey around India, about the personal story of how your granddaughter has been an integral part of you becoming a climate healer. So to speak more to the passionate grandfather part of your introduction, could you just tell us a little bit more about this book?
Yeah, this book, it's about the Pinky Promise. And it is it's a promise I made to my granddaughter. We actually had this promise together, that we would create a vegan world by the time she turns 16 in 2026.
Okay.
So that's the last chapter of the book. The other 11 chapters are other stories that happened between me and my granddaughter. And only after I wrote it all down, and I even had this published, that I realized they form the 12 steps of a transformation. From a climate heating person to a climate healing person. So I say from Homo sapiens to Homo ahimsa.
Okay.
And so it's a 12-step process, for overcoming our addictions and becoming climate healers.
Oh wow! Excited for more meetings where we start with that plan of like, how do we create a system where compassion for all beings is normalized, and we build up from that.
Right. Yeah. So we already have a good idea what the food system will look like. Then we have to now figure out what does the education system look like.
Right.
What does the governance system look like? What is the objective of governance? What are the goals of the system? So these are all things that if you look at how you design systems, and you look at what we have done in this civilization, you'll realize every one of those design points are wrong. I'm sorry to say.
I think so.
I mean, they're heating.
Yeah,
They're
and
the heating version.
no, and I learned this from friends in university that like it's not, then that's not due to a mistake. That's design. That's
design.
Inbuilt into the system.
Right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao, for today's conversation. I think the sun has gone significantly lower as we've been speaking, and but I totally did not notice the passage of time. Hearing about your vision and the clarity of how you've enunciated the pillars of the society as they are, pillars of the system that we need to build, and all the ways that we need to go around building it has been hugely beneficial for me. I hope that I'm sure it will be hugely beneficial for everyone watching this video. How we can imagine and move the system. For all of you who are watching, thank you so much for putting your mind and energy towards this. I'm sure if we all join hands together in doing this work, as Dr. Rao has said, build interconnected networks, decentralized networks of people doing this, we can really make a difference to ourselves, to our communities, and to the planet and everyone to come. I'm Dr. Siddharth Bharath of Sampurna Ahara. You can find links in the description of this video to Climate Healers. You can join their newsletter. They have a lovely newsletter that you can join on their website. You can also find a link to order this book by Dr. Sailesh Rao, The Pinky Promise, detailing the stories of how listening to his granddaughter led him on a path towards climate healing. Follow us for more such content. We are a social enterprise devoted to ensuring that healthy eating should become easy and fun for everyone on the planet. Please look in the video description for more resources. Write to us in the comments and we will be happy to respond to any and all your questions. Thank you so much. Be blessed.